Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the live stream.
So, Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Wa alaikum salam. Yes, we can hear you. How are you doing?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. How are you doing, brother?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, I'm good. Right, I'm doing well, brother. I'm doing well. The voice is lagging a bit, so maybe that's causing some issues. Anyway, I had some
Yeah.
question with regards to this is just a confusion. So like we know the like Quran is the word of God, right? So like you were just saying, right? How does that not make Allah contingent stuff for Allah? Like you see what I'm trying to say? Like if Quran is like what we read, like and it's there, and I don't know, maybe I'm being stupid. Could you explain better how like what do we mean when we say that is the word of God? Just
So
that's
God,
just
God, God speaks. We believe Allah speaks. Okay, He has words, and a subset of His words is the Quran, which means that He spoke the Quran, and that was communicated to the Prophet Muhammad through the intermediary of the angel Jibreel, where the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ went into the Ghar Hira when he was 40 years old, the cave, and he heard revelation. We believe that he heard revelation, and that he heard that communication, the spoken word of God, and that was collated over a span of 23 years, which we have now as the Quran.
right. So like how is this word of God different from what Christians call Jesus to be the word of God? You see?
Well,
I'm guessing it would be different, right?
have a completely different theology. I mean, they believe that the word became flesh. We say that God, his attributes, of which the Quran is a subset of one of his attributes, cannot become flesh for the arguments that we've actually mentioned with Terry, which is that flesh is something which is subsisting, it's something which is perishable, it's something which is caused, and something which is destroyable. All of those things are impossible for God. And if God expresses anything like that, then he stops being God, quite frankly.
Right. And so these words that this is a subset of the words that Allah spoke. Like, but He said these things like this is pre-eternal as well, right? It's not just that like in
Pardon?
Hira, there's no temporal element to it, right? Like that in the cave of Hira,
Well, that's
only
where
it was
there's a difference of
spoken at that
opinion.
time.
Well, the school of thought of the Ash'aris believe that there is no temporal element. They believe that the Quran is qadim, which means it's eternal. Atharis and Salafis and Hanbalis like Ibn Taymiyyah and Ahmed ibn Hanbal, definitely Ahmed ibn Hanbal believed this, and it's clear in his words, and the Salaf said that the Quran had a beginning. The Quran had a beginning. The words of God, or God could always speak, but the Quran itself had a beginning. So if someone comes and asks, well, do you not believe, just like we believe in Jesus, had a beginning and and he was eternal at the same time, kind of. Do you not believe in the same thing? Well, that would be an interrogation towards the Ash'ari school of thought. It would not be an interrogation towards the Athari or the Salafi or the Hanbali school of thought, because they don't believe. They believe the Quran had an explicit beginning, which is that Allah, He spoke those words in time. So Alif, Lam, Mim, one came after the other. Whereas on the Ash'ari Aqidah, really, you can't say that one came after the other. They all came at the same time, and it's eternal. So there's a difference among Islam. The Ash'aris believe, and the Maturidis believe that the Quran is eternal. The Atharis or the Salafis and Hanbalis believe that it's had a beginning, but that the words of God themselves are eternal. But the subset, being the Quran, had an explicit beginning, and the Alif Lam Mim, one letter came after the other in temporality, in sequential order. This kind of thing is impossible for the other school of thought, and these are two opinions.
So like would that like could you please explain the Hanbali position a bit more, because I'm not sure I quite understand. Like would that not, because if there is a temporal element, would that not make Allah's speech like contingent or something like that? See what
No, because
am I wrong in thinking that? And why?
Even Ghazali, like for example, when he was making he's not obviously Ash'ari, right? He was making an argument in his book Tahafut al-Falasif, which we referenced a few times today, actually, and he was making an argument for why the universe is not eternal, because basically Ibn Sina, or the Falasif, or Avicenna in particular, he believed in something called emanationism. So he believed, like Lehman says, one of the scholars of Avicenna, that the sun, you know how the sun has rays, okay? So in a sense, God emanates everything, that he has to emanate everything that comes from him. So the universe is emanated from God, and it always has to coexist with God, because so long as God exists, so too does his effect. This is the argument of Ibn Sina. And so Al-Ghazali comes and says, well, actually, can't God post-date the creation? Like, for example, if he mentions this example, he says, if a man says to his wife, you're divorced in 1 day's time, in 5 days' time, okay, which in Shara'i language, in Sharia language, is possible. You can say you're divorced, and on Thursday you'll be divorced, and it will be considered a conditional divorce. And actually, on Thursday, they will be divorced. Now, the thing is, Al-Ghazali argues to that effect against Ibn Sina, meaning that God has this quality of being a creator, but he doesn't always have to exhibit that quality. He can post-date the creation, if you like. So if God can post-date the creation, why can't he post-date his words? It's the same kind of exact same thing. So really, you could argue that the idea of temporality, when it relates to the effects of God's attributes, not necessarily his attributes themselves, but the effects of their attributes, is something which we don't have a problem with. And in fact, by saying that God can't do that, we'd be putting limits on God.
Right. Yeah, no, that's cool. Yeah, so that was my confusion basically. So thanks a lot for that. And I just had like one request. Like, you guys do like so many kind of videos, and it'll be really cool if you could do some sort of like book recommendations. Like, you got so many books like at the back, just like 5 books that someone should read. That'll be really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's difficult. But it has to be subject specific. It really does.
Yeah.
But just for now, read the Quran and really spend time with it,
Okay, well, thanks a lot. It's and by the way, like, it's really awesome. Whatever you guys doing, it's amazing, and we really appreciate it. And yeah, thanks a lot for that.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Next is SHA.